enable us to be more efficient when we're working on our MacBook or Mac Air actually going forward. So those Mac users like myself out there will know that we use trackpads a lot. I rarely use a mouse. I haven't used a mouse in a couple of years, and so I use my trackpad a lot. So it's really important that we are knowing how to actually customize that trackpad going forward. So let me share my screen and we'll get started and jump straight into it. I'll share my entire screen and I will just bear with me and I will open up just a website here. So I've just got a little website here, and what I'm going to do is I'll just minimize that a little bit, and I'm going to go right up the top where my little Apple is, and I'm going to go to my system preferences. So I'll make this a little bit bigger so that you can see. I'll put it in the center there. That's looking okay. So obviously the trackpad is, I'm just going to minimize that so you can see that a little bit better. The trackpad setting is found in system preferences. And when we first set up our Mac, it's always good to do this because when we're touching our trackpad and it doesn't do what we want it to do, we can actually set those settings so that we can, I guess, make it a more natural fit to the way that we operate. So we've got a couple little settings here, which is interesting going forward. We've got our point and click. We've got scroll and zoom. We've got some gestures as well. Now, the point and click one is a really interesting one. So it gives you a little demo here. I like these little visuals that it's showing underneath. It shows us exactly what that means. Probably the main one that we use as users is this one here, which is normally what I call a right click or a secondary click. And by default, we can change that. Often they have click with two fingers in the middle of the trackpad to do that right click or that secondary click. I prefer it to be in the bottom right-hand corner. So that's something that I changed almost automatically in regard to that. Some people don't like to have the tap of the trackpad to actually make it click. So you can turn that off if you don't actually want that. That's something that you can turn on and off depending on it. You can also do, depending on the sensitivity of your trackpad, you can actually say, well, what do I actually want? Do I really want a hard, firm kind of click to enable that functionality to work or that tool to work? And we've also got our tracking speed here. So we can alter the speed in regard to what happens there. But I would suggest that secondary click and that right click is something that you can customize and make that specific for you. The scroll and zoom is also really, really important. So if you're doing instructional videos for your students or for other teachers, the zooming becomes really important, and it's a really nice aspect of the Mac that you can actually do that in instructional videos. So if I went down to at the moment I've got pinch in and out with two fingers, a little bit like the demonstration here. And that means that when I go into my website here and I'm doing some instructional videos on how to do that, I can actually zoom in and I can zoom out really, really easily with that pinch. At the moment, I've also got a double two-finger tap as well, and I'll show you where that is going forward. So here I've got a smart zoom where I can zoom in just a little bit with a two-finger tap. So if I'm actually on something and I want to just jump into that a little bit, I can, with my two fingers, tap in the middle of my trackpad and that opens. Rotate is always good to have when you're looking at images and so forth. So we've got scroll direction, we've got that zoom and that smart zoom as well with a double. And if you don't like that, you can always take that off. But I like to leave that on because I kind of use that quite a bit in regard to just that quick zoom when I'm giving instructional videos. We've also got some more gestures there. So this is the way that we can actually swipe between pages. So if you're into something or in between apps or full screen apps, we can do scrolling going from one to another. And so you can turn those on and off, but you've also got some options there in regard to swiping. So you can see the demo there. We've got a whole range of things. One of the ones that I love is I use Mission Control a fair bit. And at the moment, I've got that swiping up with three fingers. And you can see there, that's mission control. Launchpad is the other one, and it's a pinch with 3 and 4. And you can see there of what it's actually got in regard to accessing your apps really quickly in a Launchpad. And once again, some of them don't have options that you can customize, and you can just turn them on and off. But it is worth going through these to see how they actually work and if you actually want them on or off, because the last thing you want is when you're using your trackpad to be frustrated with why did it do that, why did it open that tab, and so forth. So that's Trackpad. I also wanted to show you quickly, which is also connected to Trackpad. So once again, it's Apple at the top, system preferences, and that is my accessibility. So there's a couple little features in accessibility that it's worth actually looking at going forward here. And one of those is obviously speech. So speech is really important in regard to being able to have things read back to you. So we've got speak selected text when the key is pressed. So you can actually do some extra things as well as that kind of select speak option. You can actually change those. And the other one that I really wanted to show you here was our zoom here. So we've got some different zoom options on top of that pinch. And one of the ones that I wanted to show you was the enable hover text. So if I click on that just quickly, and you can see here I've got some options for that as well in regard to the text size for that. You could have a play around with those settings. But if I enable that hover over text, let's go back to our Wikipedia page here. And if I hold down on command and I actually move around the screen, I've actually got the instant zoom on different elements depending on where my cursor is actually hovering. So that's a really good kind of little access where you can actually zoom in on text, and it's a great one for students to know as well. And you can actually scroll up and down once that window is up, but it just gives that option of text sizes and quick zoom. So once again, that was like a hover zoom, and it was by pressing on your Mac command and then letting your cursor go to the different areas. And you can see it also opens up the images that are kind of related to that as well, which is pretty cool. You can see that it's opened up the lava and it's got those instant links and the visuals. So all of a sudden, my Mac and my trackpad whilst holding down the command key becomes this kind of interactive element where I can quickly see text at a bigger size, and I can also see connected images that are related to those kind of links and external links as well, and URL links. So once again, I'll just go into that because I'm assuming when I show teachers that, they get quite excited by that aspect. So once again, it's system preferences, and I'll just reduce that so that you can see, and it's called enable hover text. And once again, we've got some options there if we want that text size to be smaller, if it was too big. And we can also change the text font as well. Now, this comes in handy if the website text is not something that we actually want our students to read and it's not accessible for them. We can actually change that into a more student-friendly text, depending on a range of different things as well. And we can also change there the options for the activation of that too. If you feel like you're using the command key too much and you would like to use one of these other options as the hover text, you can as well. So I hope you found that interesting today. I'll come back to you quickly if I can here. I'll stop sharing. There we are. I hope you found that useful. So we looked at Trackpad. We looked at going up to the Apple at the top left-hand corner, which is another fantastic place for customizing a range of different things. So, for example, making your cursor bigger. There's a range of different things in there that might make not only workflow more efficient, but make your screen recordings when we're producing videos and video content for our students or other teachers. It might make it just that little bit more accessible going forward for the people who are watching your video content online. So I hope you found that useful. Jump up there into the Apple and system preferences and trackpad settings and just make sure that your Mac is exactly the way that you want it. Paul Hamilton here from UTV. Have a great weekend, everyone.